Tonight, two men say they reported being abused and made allegations against an older man years ago.
He did everything that was expected of him. He was told nothing further was going to be done. Obviously, he didn't understand why. He was just a child.
Now their lawyer wants to know, why did it take authorities so long to act? Ryan Cook has that special CBC investigation.
A report is recommending an end to the 15-year salary freeze for MHAs, and politicians are divided.
So, I mean, most of the Liberal caucus want to raise from the majority I spoke to.
They recommended a 30% pay increase. I don't think that that's appropriate at this time.
I'm Terry Roberts. I'll have that story coming up.
Not giving them access to visits, locking them down, no recreation, no rehabilitation, that's somehow making us safer, that is a fallacy.
That lawyer says staffing shortages mean she's been turned away from HMP and that inmates have no legislative rights.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. Two alleged victims in the Tony Humby and Bruce Escott case are taking aim at the public institutions they believe failed them. Last night, we brought you inside the unsealed search warrant documents, which give an account of how police and social workers handled the case. Ryan Cook has more on that, but first, a warning: this story contains details of alleged sexual abuse.
You know, the public, when they hear this, they should be pretty outraged.
Stephen Barnes represents two men who allege they were sexually abused by Tony Humby, who is now facing 72 charges related to alleged sexual abuse involving 11 youths at a St. John's trailer park. CBC News obtained search warrant documents, so far untested in court, which revealed a 16-year-old told police in 2007 that he'd been raped by Tony Humby, 16 years before Humby was arrested. That man is now one of Barnes's clients.
He did everything that was expected of him. He had a rape kit done, and then he was told that nothing further was going to be done. Obviously, he didn't understand why. He was just a child.
According to the officer who authored these documents, more than 30 people have come forward with allegations against Tony Humby, from rape to molestation and luring. Many of these allegations are said to have taken place after the 2007 complaint, and that includes a man we're calling John Doe, who says he was abused by Humby starting in 2008 when he was 14.
He raped me, and there's times where during being tied to a bed, he would go off in another room, have a smoke, do whatever, and he'd come back and he'd keep me there for hours and do it as much as he wanted until he was basically ready to let me go.
John Doe now wonders how his life would be different if Humby had been charged in 2007.
I probably wouldn't have been in contact with him. And if I wasn't in contact with him, then more than likely none of that stuff would have happened to me. It probably wouldn't have happened to a lot of these victims.
John Doe is now suing the province, saying he was under the supervision of the Child Protection System in 2009 or 10 when he told social workers about Tony Humby and co-accused Bruce Escott.
They said that they would get the RNC involved to come talk to me, and no one ever did.
The provincial government has yet to file a statement of defense in court and declined comment for this story. The Royal Newfoundland Constabulary also said it couldn't comment on specifics, but in general says sexual assault investigations have come a long way in the past decade. Bruce Escott has reached a plea deal in his case, while Tony Humby has pleaded not guilty and is set for trial next March. Ryan Cook, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, our CBC Investigates story caught the attention of opposition leader Tony Wakeham. He addressed media at the House of Assembly this afternoon, calling on the provincial government to take action.
If I was Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador right now, I would be calling for an independent review to find out why or how this happened, why it took so long for it to be investigated, and what can we make sure to do that this never happens again.
Now, Wakeham says the province's child and youth advocate could be the right person to take on that independent investigation. In a statement this afternoon, her office says the advocate has serious concerns about the details reported by CBC Investigates and anticipates that steps will be taken in the very near future to ensure the rights of vulnerable children and youth are protected. Well, another debate is brewing over salaries paid to politicians in this province, but a proposed pay increase, well, that's a tough sell for the Premier. Here Now's Terry Roberts has that story.
In March, an independent committee led by lawyer Heather Jacobs recommended that the base salary for MHAs increase from just over $95,000 to $120,000. That's a nearly 26% increase. Premier Andrew Furey has been silent on the issue before having this to say to CBC this week.
My memory of this is they recommended a 30% pay increase. I don't think that that's appropriate at this time with other families struggling with the cost of living right now.
MHA salaries have been frozen since 2009. Politicians elected since 2015 have also seen a considerable reduction in pension benefits. MHA salaries in Newfoundland and Labrador are the 10th lowest of Canada's 13 provinces and territories. In her report, Jacobs said the salary is unfair and maybe even a detriment to democracy because it potentially discourages diversity and excellence in the legislature. The report on MHA salaries, severance, pension and allowances was presented to the House of Assembly Management Commission in March. In a 4-3 vote, this all-party committee accepted the recommendations without modification. Meaning it will now be debated in the House of Assembly, likely this fall. But the Premier is already signaling his position.
The changes to the pension and some travel things and other minor things, fine, but not increase to the pay at this point in time where other people across the province are experiencing a significant crunch with respect to the cost of living.
But this opposition MHA agrees that it's time to lift the salary freeze. And Barry Pettin believes most MHAs, regardless of their political stripe, agree.
I mean, MHAs have not received a raise in 15, 16 years, and not many people, not many professions around that have not increased their, have not had an increase in that amount of time.
Pettin admits that a $25,000 increase might be a hard sell.
And whatever's debated in the House Assembly, whether it's 25, 20, 10, 15, 5, maybe nothing. So be it. That'll be decided in the House Assembly by all members in a healthy debate.
The report also recommends an increase for MHAs who take on extra duties, like House Speaker and opposition party leaders, or serve on committees such as public accounts. Jacobs is recommending those elected in 2015 have their full pension reinstated retroactively because changes were adopted after they were elected. Allowances and severance payments should also be bumped up, she says. It will be costly. We're talking millions of dollars. But Jacobs believes the province's economy is strong enough to withstand the added burden. Plus, if you want to attract future politicians, you have to be competitive.
People are leaving professions out there to come in. You want to bring in, strong, smart, capable people. A lot of them are not going to leave their positions they have now at a greater pay scale to come in and take a reduction in pay and benefits to serve. I mean, there's really a love of your province now. It comes down to desire of public service.
Barry Pettin says there is a way to take politics out of this uncomfortable debate. He says recommendations from people like Heather Jacobs should be binding, with no role for politicians in deciding how much they're paid. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, it's been a difficult summer for inmates at Her Majesty's Penitentiary and their loved ones, as most visitations have been canceled due to staff shortages. And one criminal defense lawyer says it's impacted her work. Reporter Abby Cole has that story.
It's been a difficult summer at HMP. The old prison is falling apart. It's short on staff. That means for most of it, inmates have been stuck inside. Between June and September, inmates were outside in the summer weather just 8 times. But it's not just about getting out in the fresh air. Marie Marr's son is in HMP. She used to be able to call him almost every day, but this year, it's been maybe once a month.
When he was in there before, he used to call me every morning, every evening, every night. But they got that change. So now I don't get to hear him very often. I'm not pleased with it. It's not right, but it's good to hear from him more often. Then I know he's doing okay.
Getting a visitation with her son is nearly impossible. She lives on Roach's Line, and often on her drive into town, she'll get a call that her appointment has been canceled. The Justice Department told CBC News in a statement that between June and September, the visiting room at HMP has been open only 25% of its scheduled time. Mar is not alone. Family and friends of inmates keep each other up to date on frequent lockdowns and canceled visits. The group is called Living Inside HMP. Here, loved ones and former inmates share information about the conditions at HMP. Mar hears about it from her son.
He's always talking about threatening him with that in there. It's ridiculous. Imagine that. Oh my gosh. It's hard. And they shouldn't be putting up with that stuff like that in there. I can't sleep in the night time because I'm always thinking about them.
The staff shortage means lawyers can't always see their clients at HMP. Erin Breen says she was turned away from the prison last month while trying to meet a client to prepare for a bail hearing.
It was explained to me after that there was a person who needed to go to the hospital at the same time. Therefore, they did not have sufficient resources to accommodate both a hospital visit and a lawyer meeting at the same time.
Luckily for Breen, the judge understood her situation and gave her an extra day. But the problem doesn't end there. She says in the province there are no legislative rights for inmates, making them effectively powerless.
If people think that punishing people like this, removing, not giving them access to visits, locking them down, no recreation, no rehabilitation, that's somehow making us safer, that is a fallacy. That is wrong. Everyone is coming back out, and they are going to come out far more damaged and far more desperate as a result of the trauma that they're experiencing inside.
NAPE represents corrections staff. The union says there is barely enough staff to properly run the prison.
Anytime staffing shortages or challenges, it impacts a whole number of things, from the visitation, from being able to attend appointments, from programming at HMP, and our staff are always greatly concerned about it. It actually increase the level of risk at that facility. It's having an untold, an immeasurable impact on our staff. We're seeing the mental health effects. We're seeing the physical injury effects when you talk to them, when you listen to them, because they have to work, like I said, minimum of 25 years in the prison environment, and it's taken a toll on these officers when they cannot actually get a regular scheduled day off.
The plans for a new facility are underway, but it will be years before a new facility opens. That means NAPE and the Justice Department will have to look at finding more people to solve today's staffing crisis. Abby Cole, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, defects on Titan's hull, a faulty monitoring system. That's what's turned up in the wake of an investigation by the American Transportation Safety Board. As Here and Now's Heather Gillis reports, today's inquiry into the Titan tragedy heard more stories of dismissed concerns from the company's CEO, Stockton Rush.
This image shows the Titan wreckage as it was discovered on the ocean floor.
These pictures show how Titan's hull shredded upon implosion. Don Kramer, engineer with the Transportation Safety Board, analyzed the wreckage that remained at the bottom of the Atlantic.
This image shows these two pieces laying flat on the ocean floor during a recovery mission. Both pieces, and in fact much of the hull, had delaminated into multiple shells or layers.
These new pictures tell a story. Visible waves and wrinkles in the hull's carbon fiber after it was built. Pores in the carbon fiber resin, air pockets in the adhesive holding layers of the hull together, all weak points in the submersible. And some of the tiny microphones in the monitoring system listening for cracks in the hull, Kramer says, weren't working.
Investigators examined acoustic emission data from dives in 2022. And when the data was analyzed, it was noted that 3 of the 8 sensors did not appear to detect acoustic events.
He says after a dive in 2022, Titan's 80th, the one where crew heard a loud bang upon resurfacing, the submersible started measuring higher strain on its hull. Still, OceanGate continued to dive.
I don't think many people ever told Stockton no. Don't think he understood that concept.
Engineer Will Conan says he's built 16 submersibles and even created a pilot program with a seal of approval from the U.S. Coast Guard. He and other experts drafted a now infamous letter in 2018 voicing concerns about Titan's creation and its operation. He even spoke to Stockton Rush about doing things safely and getting the vehicle classified. But the CEO wasn't interested.
The usual response that it takes too long, it's too expensive, and they don't know about this technology. I don't have time to explain my technology, and it's not doable. And it's like, yeah, no, look, there is a way. You can't just walk away completely. I said there are such things as qualification through testing.
Conan says there are only 9 submersibles that can dive down to 4,000 meters and beyond. Unlike Titan, they're all classified. Prior to the Titan implosion, he says the submersible industry had a stellar safety record going 50 years without a fatality. Conan chalks it up to strict design and engineering regulations and says he'd never build a carbon fiber sub because after years of research and development, even the U.S. Navy hasn't figured it out. Meanwhile, Will Conan says the submersible industry needs better rules and regulations because it's growing. He also says people are finding ways to skirt U.S. Coast Guard rules and bring passengers on subs, which is why OceanGate came up with the term mission specialist. Tomorrow, testimony continues with NASA, Boeing, and the U.S. Coast Guard on deck. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
Post-secondary students in St. John's polished their resumes and rubbed shoulders at the 25th annual career fair today. Students got an opportunity to explore potential grad schools, scope out possible career paths, and as you're about to hear, employers are on the lookout too.
So this is our 25th anniversary of the Career and Graduate School Fair. So annually, we bring exhibitors from across Newfoundland, Labrador, Canada, and the rest of the world here to meet and recruit our fabulous students.
And how has the job hunt been so far? Bad. It's been horrible. It's been tasking because you have to tailor cover letters and resumes and see positions are open, which they hardly ever are, and network, and it's just been tasking. But this has helped me today in meeting people and discovering jobs that are open.
What kind of job are you hoping to get?
I'm looking for like coding related jobs like software development, something. Right now I'm in my undergraduate program, so I just visited here to know more about how I can apply for internships and after finishing my courses.
How do you feel about finding a job once you're done your studies?
Obviously a bit concerned. I think the biggest thing though right now is just be optimistic about it and keep going, you know. It's going to happen when it's going to happen, and if it doesn't happen right away, it's no big deal.
It's a bit difficult right now because you're competing with people who've been laid off and who have experience for the past 2 or 3 years. So, and there's not many jobs at the moment because we have an influx of people, so it's really hard to get a job right now.
So we have a number of exhibitors right now who are recruiting. There is 122 in total here. I know we've got a number of exhibitors right now who are doing interviews on site. And so it's just a lot of really rich conversation happening. And hopefully our students are building their network. So when they transition into the workforce, they have a network to pull on to find employment.
Is it making you feel better about your job hunt, this career fair? It is, because you get to meet the people who are hiring directly, and they can help you facilitate, get your resume out there. So yeah, it is helping me in my job search, yes.
Currently, what my goal is to talk to them, build like a network, and then follow up. I think that's what's going to help me out. Like once I follow up, tell them, hey, it's really nice to meet you. That's how I can, get a job or do something, yeah.
So how are you feeling optimistic about maybe landing something today?
Today, no, but in 2 months from now, hopefully, yes. Yeah, for sure.
Renata Russell was able to grant her mother one of her final wishes. Just 4 days before she died, Renata got married in her mother's hospital room at the Labrador Health Centre in Happy Valley Goose Bay. And she says it was one of the most perfect days of her life.
I couldn't picture anything more perfect than even walking down just the hospital corridor, right? Just to go and have my kids with me, have my family with me, and my mom there. And it was short, sweet, but it was absolutely the most perfect day of my life. Mom lived with us, so she's had an impact on my life, Draper's life, my kids' lives, and Draper's family's lives. I mean, we were always one family anyway, even before this, but this was just a nice big celebration for her as well, not just for me and Draper and his family and stuff like that, but it was just all of us finally, this is it now. We are all one family together. I could tell this was a very proud moment for her. I knew the reaction when I seen her. She was going to be in tears and so just full of joy. She absolutely loved it, and we all loved it so much. Yeah, just celebrating together. There was no sickness to be seen. It was just nothing but love and happiness and joy, and that's all we want to remember for that day.
Beautiful story there for sure. We've got a ridge of high pressure in place. It's clearing things out. Some of us are going to see some cold temperatures tonight. We'll get into all the details coming up.
Ashley, as we all know, a lot of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians spend time in Florida. Lots of snowbirds out there, and Hurricane Helene is really bearing down.
Yeah, things, over the next couple of days, well, the next day or so, we're already into Wednesday, Florida is going to start to see some of the effects. So I thought we'd start there since I've been talking about it for most of this week. Let's take a look at what's going on. So officially it's become a hurricane this afternoon, now topping out wind speeds at 160 kilometers per hour. This is already a fairly strong hurricane, and it is going to continue to intensify once it gets north of the Yucatan Peninsula there and head into the Gulf of Mexico as we head through tomorrow. So now looking like it will top out. This is just right now forecast indications. It could be stronger than this, but right now looking like it'll top out at about 205 kilometers per hour. That's the top wind speed expected just around the eye of the hurricane. But this is a large storm, and most of Florida is going to see some sort of effect from this. In the Big Bend region, where it does look like Helene will make landfall, we could be talking about 12 to 18 feet of storm surge moving in. The other thing is Atlanta in the path of the hurricane as well. The winds in Atlanta are going to top out around 95 kilometers per hour, but this could potentially be a historic storm for that area. So definitely going to keep an eye on the forecast over the next couple of days. Right now, hurricane warnings already in place, as well as some tropical storm warnings. I just want to show you how big this system is and how widespread the winds are going to be felt across Florida. So most of Florida will be seeing tropical storm winds, and that's winds sustained over 63 kilometers per hour. And again, that even reaching the Atlanta region as we head into Thursday night and into Friday morning. So like I said, I'm sure you already know this, but if you're planning on heading to Florida, you're definitely, you're probably not going, you shouldn't be heading to Florida, I should say, at this point. So very much quiet weather compared to that across the island. Today even, we're seeing some periods of rain, some periods of drizzle rather, along with some cloud cover in this northerly flow, down to about 10 degrees in St. John's right now. It's pretty decent out there. We did see some sun at times today, but those winds are gusting around 30 kilometers per hour. So this pattern hasn't really changed a whole lot with that onshore flow. The difference is we've got this ridge of high pressure that has been parked up across Labrador, sinking south now, and that is clearing the skies, especially for the northern peninsula, the west coast of the island, and starting to thin those clouds out as well through central areas of the island. So if we take a look, we do in behind this system, we do have some more rain that will move in, and that will be the story for Lab City. It's been fairly nice, but things will change over the next couple of days. For now, still dealing with temperatures around 9-10 degrees for most of us in that onshore flow. You get away from that, you're still in the teens right now. 16 in Lab City, 17 in Happy Valley Goose Bay. And just taking a look at the current satellite radar, we can see lots of cloud cover through central. There are some peaks of clear sky there in the mix, though, and then more shower activity, or drizzle activity, rather, across eastern areas of the island. But northern peninsula, southeastern portions of Labrador, you are seeing some beautiful conditions tonight, and these clear skies and calm winds are going to lead to the potential for some frost tonight. So frost advisory in place for the northern peninsula down through gross morning. You're expected to see your temperatures drop to between 0 and +6 tonight. If you still have some frost sensitive plants out there, you're definitely going to want to cover them up. And overall, like I said, pretty much what you see is what you get. Those clouds will move in as we head towards the morning hours, but not before these temperatures drop quite dramatically. And other than that, daytime or overnight lows rather will sit around 11 degrees in St. John's. As we head into tomorrow, that ridge of high pressure will dominate the weather picture for most of us across the island. So weather through central, west coast, even the southwest coast will actually be pretty decent. However, eastern Newfoundland, you're still looking at that northeasterly flow, which means periods of drizzle and cloud cover certainly still possible and much cooler temperatures. Look at that, 20 degrees in Makkovik tomorrow. That is the place to be. 16 in Mary's Harbor. We'll talk about the long-range forecast coming up.
I had never written a creative nonfiction book before, and Jack had never written a book before. We did not know each other.
Well, Jack Whalen, child abuse advocate and now author. Hear how he's teamed up with literary giant Lisa Moore on a book about his life. That story is just ahead.
Org.
Well, imagine spending a total of 730 days in solitary confinement as a teenager. One of this province's most accomplished authors has not only imagined it, she's also created a literary record of it in her new book, Invisible Prisons.
If you looked at them sideways, the guards, or if your glance went that way by accident, if you let your eyes drift over them, if you change the TV channel, you might get a blow to the face or the kidneys.
Lisa Moore wrote the novel in close collaboration with its subject, Jack Whalen. We've aired many stories about the abuse Whalen endured at the Whitburn Boys' Home in the 1970s. As part of his campaign to have the statute of limitations for childhood abuse overturned, he built a replica of a solitary confinement cell and parked it outside Confederation Building. He eventually succeeded in getting the Limitations Act dropped. I spoke with Moore about teaming up with Whalen and asked what it was about his story that made her want to tell it.
I don't know if it was the story that made me want to tell it. It was Jack himself. He just has so much integrity. He's a strong, courageous person, and I saw that. I saw that in that very first Zoom call. And also, he, as is the case with many people who are denied an education. Like, he was in a cell with nothing, no books, no television, no sensory stimulus, no sunlight, nothing but an iron cot. And during the day, they took away his mattress and his blanket. So when that happens, when people are denied an education, sometimes they become great storytellers. And Jack is a very great storyteller. He's precise, he has an excellent memory, and he had a burning desire to tell the story.
But he can't write.
He can't write. And, you know, I'm not suggesting that it wasn't a scary prospect, because I had never written a creative nonfiction book before, and Jack had never written a book before. We did not know each other at all, but there was somehow between us an immediate trust, I think, that bore out, you know, like it was, we were right. It was a gut instinct. Because a book and writing is just a vessel for the story. And I could see that we would be equal collaborators in this project.
What is creative nonfiction? Can you explain what that means in the context of this book?
Sure. So it's a little bit different than journalism, which is often, you know, under the category of nonfiction. I think that in this book, I allowed myself to go into places that, you know, empathetically and with my imagination to create characters. So for instance, I've never met Jack's mother, but I talked to his siblings, and I talked to Jack over and over, and to Glenys, who was very close with Jack's mother, her mother-in-law. And I know what it is to be a mother, and I could imagine what it would be like to have your son taken from you, and finding out there's absolutely nothing you could do. And so I was able to, or I allowed myself to go into her stream of consciousness, to imagine what it would be like for her to wake up in the middle of the night, you know, thinking he was in the bed across the hall, and then remembering that he was not. And I think when we bring readers to that kind of imaginative space, it provokes empathy. we can understand the situation. And, you know, at the end, if I had created something that felt true and real to him, he always said the same thing, which was beautiful. That word just filled me with joy. Collaboration is so much fun. Fun is a strange word, but it actually is like a profound experience. But if there was something wrong, he would let me know. He would say, it wasn't that way. That was wrong. That's not the correct dimensions of the cell. That's not, you know, many things that I did get wrong. And so then we would rewrite it, and I would read it again, and he would follow along, and we just talked about every sentence and every fact. I think that telling stories or bearing witness is a powerful act, and it empowers. I'm not saying that everyone can do it or should do it, but somehow Jack had the courage to do it, and I'm incredibly grateful about that.
In a way, are readers of this book also bearing witness by reading the book?
I hope so. I think so. I think I think that if you read this book, you will not be able to put up with the idea that we have people in extended periods of solitary confinement that actually causes hallucinations and despair and just a loss of the sense of what time is. And we define ourselves by moving through time. So to have it taken away, I mean, Jack didn't even have natural light, so there was no way for him to know what time it was. And so how do you know who you are if you're not moving through events? There were no events. I think it would be impossible to read this book and not see what a horror and a form of torture solitary confinement is.
Move that the House has no confidence in the Prime Minister and in the government.
Motion failed. The Liberals survive a vote in the House of Commons today. We head to Ottawa for the latest. That's just ahead. Well, the Liberals survived a vote in the House of Commons today that threatened to bring down the government. The Bloc Québécois and the NDP failed to support the non-confidence motion introduced by the Conservatives. But as Kate McKenna reports, the Liberals are facing a new challenge to their hold on power.
Nays compte 211, 211.
With the first non-confidence vote defeated, the government survives for now. But today, the Bloc Québécois gave an ultimatum and a deadline.
Le Bloc Québécois veut rendre public.
Leader Yves-François Blanchet says the government must pass 2 bills by October 29th or risk being defeated.
What we are proposing is good for retired persons in Quebec, but also in Canada. It's good for milk and eggs and poultry product producer in Quebec, but also in Canada.
The bloc bills would boost old age security for younger seniors and shield dairy, egg, and poultry farmers from future losses in trade negotiations. The bills have both been described as costly and controversial.
I think every proposal that's made, is something that is considered. But I don't think it's helpful to issue ultimatums. I think that what is helpful is to demonstrate that Parliament is focused on Canadians and not politics.
Now that the NDP's deal with the Liberals is over, the Conservatives are using every possible opportunity to try to topple the government.
Today, we'll vote to trigger a carbon tax election.
The bloc holds the balance of power, able to keep the government afloat, and it's flexing its muscles.
What we realize right now is that the Bloc Québécois did nothing for Quebecers in the last 2 years, and now they are scrambling to find a way to be relevant and to provide some record.
But even if the Bloc Québécois does vote against the government after its self-imposed deadline, it still needs the support of the NDP to trigger an election. And the NDP says it's taking votes on a case-by-case basis. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, Tropical Storm Helene has become a hurricane. Ashley's been following that weather system all week, and as she mentioned in her earlier forecast, it looks like it will hit the southern United States in the next day. It's now crossing the Gulf of Mexico after battering Cancun. Now, it was still a tropical storm when it hit Mexico, but it's now gaining strength as it crosses the Gulf. Torrential rains are expected to further erode Cancun's beaches. In the southern U.S., sandbagging is underway, with officials declaring emergencies in both Florida and Georgia. Authorities are predicting life-threatening storm surge along the entire west coast of Florida. The storm is so large that hurricane conditions can be expected along 145 kilometers of the Georgia-Florida line and rain as far north as Indiana. Well, giant pandas are a major attraction at zoos around the world, but one in Finland has decided they are just too costly to keep. The privately owned zoo says it can no longer afford to care for the animals, so it's returning its 2 pandas to China 8 years into the agreed 15-year stay. The zoo had invested over $12 million in their panda enclosure. It also faced an annual cost of $2 million for their upkeep and a preservation fee paid to China. But a big drop in business during the pandemic, mounting debt and high inflation forced the zoo's hand. Well, this spring and summer, a strange TikTok trend was spreading online. It wasn't a dance, a catchy tune, or a fashion trend. It was videos about the dangers of wearing sunscreen. And for dermatologists, it was dangerous misinformation. Dr. James Coffey swung by the St. John's Morning Show studio and spoke with the CBC's Daryl Roberts about debunking a social media myth.
Stop using sunscreen, okay? The sunscreen chemicals seep into your bloodstream after just 1 day.
First of all, what is your response to this anti-sunscreen movement that we've been seeing pop up on social media?
I look at the fact that the highest form of cancer in Canada is skin cancer. The number one risk factor for skin cancer is sunlight. You know, this is one thing that people have to be aware of.
So the oxybenzone is the chemical that is being named as the culprit.
And studies done after this report came out back in 2019 did not support that there was any evidence of cancer. And in fact, they did a study on genetically mutated hairless rats who were fed 100 times the dose that a human would apply. And they did find abnormalities when they did provide an enormous dose for this group. So in humans, that would be about 275 years of application daily of 100% of your body surface to get the same dose.
Tell us more about why people should wear sunscreen.
So, number one, sunscreen prevents you from aging your skin and prevents wrinkles. Studies done in Australia, where the highest population of melanoma and skin cancer in the world exists, showed that after 15 years of follow-up, there was a 50% reduction in the amount of skin cancers in the group that were being treated with sunscreen.
What if it is cloudy or raining? Should people still be thinking about sunscreen then?
Yeah, so the other myth is that we don't get sun here in Newfoundland, and we hear that a lot in our office. 85% of the UV rays go through fog and clouds. So as Dr. J was talking about, the UVA actually penetrates windshield glass as well.
What should people be looking for on the label in terms of regular sunscreen or a mineral sunscreen?
What we don't support or recommend are the spray sunscreens, and that's the new fad people are using. But the problem is you can't apply it evenly, and the other issue is that it's the aerosol that can get into your lungs, and we don't know how that affects your body.
Well, a rare 18th century diamond necklace is on public display today at Sotheby's in London, and pretty soon it could be yours.
This is a symphony of gold, diamonds, and silver. The back of the necklace is all mounted in gold to give it structure. And they knew already in the 18th century that diamonds would be highlighted with a lighter metal around it. So it's silver.
Wow, just look at that. The jewelry weighs 300 carats and was made in the decade before the 1789 French Revolution. Some of the diamonds are thought to be from a necklace that brought scandal to French Queen Marie Antoinette. The price is estimated at up to $2.8 million. The necklace will be offered for sale by Sotheby's in Geneva in November. Wow, that's a piece of jewelry.
That'd be a nice addition to the forecast.
Oh, yeah. No one would listen to anything that you're saying. Everyone would just be looking at the diamonds.
That's right.
Beautiful. Okay, so let's have a look at the forecast. I know you're keeping a very close eye on Hurricane Helene, and it's expected to really intensify over the next few days.
Yeah, even just since we did the forecast a little bit earlier, the new forecast showing Category 4 strength potentially and upwards of 20 feet of life-threatening storm surge. So that just shows you how quickly things change. Here, nothing's really changing as far as the weather goes. It's been a whole lot of what you see is what you get. Let's take a look at what's going on as we head through the weekend. So into Thursday evening, we're going to see a little bit of an area of low pressure to the south. This will bring some more cloud cover with it and more of a southerly or easterly flow for the south coast, which has been very different from what we've been seeing. So the shower potential later on in the day for the southwestern corner of the province. And other than that, there's not really a whole lot changing, especially for the east. Temperatures will sit around 12 degrees through the day. Now through central, more cloud cover expected, but overall dry. Daytime highs between 15 to 16 degrees. Northern Peninsula, same thing, 13 degrees. And then up across Labrador, another beautiful day expected on Friday. Coastal areas, 18 degrees. Same thing for Happy Valley, Goose Bay. And again, some more shower potential moving in for Lab City through the afternoon. Into Saturday, this area of low pressure looks like it'll stay south, but there are some indications that we could see some showers along the south coast of the island. So keep that in mind. For now, I do have the forecast as staying generally cloudy through the day. And if we do see this area of low pressure further north, we'll likely see some showers from it. However, this is going to keep the northeast coast in onshore flow yet again. And you know what that means. That means periods of drizzle, potentially cloud cover. And again, those cooler temperatures sitting somewhere between 13 to 14 degrees. Again, central, let's say the western half of the island looking much nicer with about 18 degrees in Corner Brook, 13 in St. Anthony. And again, another beautiful day up across Labrador, 17 to 20 degrees as your daytime highs on Saturday. Absolutely nothing to complain about in the forecast for you. Long range forecast, 12, 13, 14, 15 degrees. It's your overnight lows between 10 to 12. And again, the chances of showers. Now, as it has been for most of this week and most of last week, it is not a washout by any means, but just those unsettled conditions through the day. Maybe we'll see some sun by the time we get into Sunday. Central and western Newfoundland, much nicer forecast, although it does look like some rain by the time we get into Monday and about 16 degrees. Same thing for western Newfoundland. And then for Labrador, you'll see slight chance of some showers as we get into Sunday, dropping a little bit, but still well above where you should be sitting this time of year, 16, 17 degrees to start next week. And western Labrador, you are also looking at some showers for Sunday, but Monday drying out and a temperature around 16. Now, your overnight lows, though, getting close to 0 degrees. Our photo of the day, the Northern Lights have been dancing away, especially in Nain.
Gorgeous.
Great shot.
Wow.
Love it. Thank you so much for that photo. If you have any you'd like to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, Deirdre, that
Yeah.
must have been stunning in person. I mean, look how spectacular it is in a photo. Imagine seeing it in person.
I love when you can see the stars in the sky in the pictures too. That's my favorite part.
Yeah, Northern Lights, all the best weather. Northern Labrador is doing pretty well right now. Pretty good. Okay, well, that's it for us. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us.